Welcome, everyone. I'm Dr. Lon Schiffbauer, and today we are going to talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, odds are, if you've ever Googled motivation or cracked open a textbook under the chapter of motivation, Maslow's hierarchy of needs was right up there at the top. And there's really good reason for this. First of all, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is what we would call a seminal theory. Now, seminal basically means it broke new ground and has been very influential in the study of motivation since it first came about in 1943. Yeah, this thing has been around for over 80 years. And yet it continues to be influential today. It has really stood the test of time, and that doesn't happen with very many theories. Therefore, a seminal theory. Another reason it's really popular is Maslow's hierarchy is both really intuitive and really instructional. What do I mean by this? Well, I mean that it's intuitive because it takes all of 5 minutes to understand, but understanding it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a perfect understanding of how to apply it effectively. And so today we're going to first understand it and then talk about its potential applications. So, Maslow's is most often expressed in a pyramid divided into five segments. And for this, I will go ahead and get out of the way. And each segment represents a different tier of needs. The first tier is what we would call the physiological needs, our physiological needs. This is for things like food and water and shelter and sleep, things we basically need just to survive. The next tier up this pyramid is safety. This is the need to keep ourselves and our resources safe and secure. Third up the tier is love and belonging, which I'll just refer to as belonging throughout the rest of this lecture. Love and belonging, or belonging, is the interpersonal needs that we have for love and belonging and acceptance in the community. Next up, second from the top, is esteem. This is the need to be respected for our accomplishments and our contributions. And finally, at the very top, we have self actualization, the need to develop ourselves and our capabilities to their fullest potential. And by the way, Maslow, thanks a lot for putting the longest title in the very tippy top of the pyramid so that we can't really make it fit very well. Whatever. Okay, so with that in mind, let's talk about what Maslow's really looks like in terms of our day to day lives. So, to do that, I want to talk about Maslow's hierarchy of Og. All right? Well, okay, what do I mean? Well, meet Og. Og's a caveman living off, who knows, 40,000 years ago. I don't know how. Yeah, that's not my specialty. Anyway, Og has a problem. Og is cold, he's freezing, he's hungry, he's tired, he has no shelter. This dude is like days, if not hours, away from dying because his physiological needs are not being met. He has no food, he has no water, he has no clothing, he has no shelter, he has no protection from the elements. So Og goes off and he works really, really hard. He finds a cave and he kills a mastodon and he eats the food and he makes clothing. So now his physiological needs have been met. But check this out. Now he has a new problem. Now he is absolutely paranoid that somebody is going to come along and take away his food, water, and shelter and his livelihood, right? He worked really, really hard to develop and gather this ability to survive. And he doesn't want anyone to take it away. So he is skeptical and just absolutely paranoid of everyone. Folks walk by his cave, they wave, he doesn't wave back. He cannot let his guard down. But because he can't let his guard down, he's not able to really develop any sort of relationships in the community. So Og goes off, he gets a guard dog, he puts a door on his cave, and he kind of makes some agreements with other folks in the area and sets up a neighborhood watch. That's great. But now Og can be open. He can be vulnerable. He does not have to look upon everybody as a competitor for his scarce resources. He can now express himself and experience love and belonging in the community because he now sees himself as part of the community instead of in conflict with the community. And you know what's really awesome about feeling this sense of love and belonging is that Og can now feel a sense of esteem because everybody around him just enjoys being with him. They laugh at his jokes, they tell him he's awesome. He feels like he has a place in the community. And in turn, he feels better about himself because he is now part of a larger whole and he can make contributions in ways that are past his own selfish needs, but for the needs of the community. And this gives him a great deal of esteem, both in the community and for himself. And finally, now that he has this sense of self esteem and he has love and belonging in his life, and he never has to worry about his physiological needs or safety needs, Og can go ahead and start self actualizing. He can push himself, he can develop his skills and talents and competencies, and he can maybe take up hobbies. He can start painting. Now, at the beginning, the painting isn't anything to crow about. It's pretty basic, but that's not the point. What he's really enjoying is the learning process, the growing process, the personal development. And because he keeps growing and growing, eventually his paintings, his skills, his competencies are just extraordinary. And they enrich his life, they enrich the community, and they enrich the lives of all of those around him. And so now Og is totally rocking the very tip of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So that's Og, okay? But you know what? We're all Og. You, me, all those around us, we are all Og. So let me give you an example. Think back to a time when you were laid off or even fired from a professional career position. Now, if you've never experienced this, ask your parents, ask your aunts and uncles. Odds are somebody has gone through a layoff from a career position. Now, speaking for myself, it destroyed me at first. It absolutely destroyed me. Now, it could be easy to say, well, yeah, of course, because now you've gone from, say, self actualizing down to your physiological needs. But there's more to it than just that. Many of us really define ourselves through our careers. Our sense of self, our sense of self esteem, of who we are, is really expressed in our careers. So, all the time, people might ask you, hey, so what do you do? Well, what they mean is, what value do you bring the community through your career? Furthermore, the workplace is really the nexus of a lot of our social relationships. Sure, we have friends and family outside of work, I get that. But when it comes to our day to day interactions and the people from whom we really get a sense of who we are, those folks are all at work. And so when that's taken away, a lot of our sense of community is taken away. And finally, when our sense of community is taken away and we no longer are doing what we were doing, so we are no longer a manager, or we are no longer a logistician, or we are no longer a business analyst, we start to wonder, who are we anyway? We go through an existential crisis because our sense of self was really tied to the workplace. And now that that's been taken away, we are completely without a foundation. And so, yes, something like a layoff can just really devastate us in relation to where we stand in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay, now, one thing to consider, we all own a condo in every single tier of Maslow's, right? It's not like you or I are in Maslow's tier of, say, esteem in every facet of our lives, right? There are many ways in which we are continually working to move up or to maintain our position in Maslow's. For instance, some folks might just be totally crushing it in their careers. Fantastic, doing well, they're self-actualizing in their careers. But their families, they're struggling in their families. Things are not going well at home. Ergo, the Supertramp song, Take the Long Way Home, right? Other folks might love their families and everything's great and so on and so forth, but they can't get a winning hand for their career to save their lives. So we are always moving up and down the various tiers of Maslow's hierarchy of needs in many facets of our lives. Okay, so we now have a very good understanding of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But now, how do we actually apply it, especially in the workplace? Well, let's talk about that a bit. Now, it goes without saying that, you know what, our employers, and us for that matter, we would really love to just live in the tier of self actualization. That is the sweet spot. That's when we are working intrinsically to do the very best we can. We push ourselves. We are never comfortable where we are. We are continually moving forward. Personal and professional development is a passion. We love it there. And our employers would love us to be there as well. But you know what? There's like four other tiers that a company and we as employees need to work through to get to that holy land of self actualization. So let's break these down a little bit and talk about them in terms of the workplace. Now, one way that I like to do this is to talk about the five tiers of Maslow's hierarchy in three phases. The first phase are the bottom two steps. We're talking about our physiological and safety needs. Now, this is really the domain of HR policies because physiological really comes down to your pay and compensation, your total compensation or T comp. We're talking about your salary, your bonuses, your health insurance, things of this nature. Salary, bonuses, health insurance, all of that total compensation is really geared toward meeting your physiological needs. Okay, that makes sense. But then what about safety? Well, in order for an employee to really thrive in the workplace, they need to feel safe. Now, that doesn't just mean safety in terms of keeping your job, although that's a really big part of it. Safety comes in many flavors. They need to feel safe from discrimination, safe from retaliation, safe from sexual harassment, safe from bullying or workplace violence. There's many ways in which an employee can feel threatened at work. And if the HR policies and practices and corporate work culture do not provide for a safe work environment, then employees are never going to move past that tier of Maslow's. Okay, so then we talk about the next two tiers, which is belonging and esteem. This is where HR practices and policies and so forth really kind of lose their ability to influence because now we're talking about people and how they interact. Yes, HR can do some organizational development and put in place some reporting structures and so forth, but how people collaborate, how they work together to solve problems, that's really at the individual level. Let's first look at belonging. Belonging means that as an employee, you feel like you belong to the group, that you are accepted and valued as a contributor in that organization. It also means that you feel a keen alignment with the organization's mission and values, that your values align with the company's values, and therefore you really belong in this group. Then we have esteem. By esteem, we mean that the employee feels like their work is valued, recognized, and rewarded, that their contributions are important, and that the organization and those around them recognize the value of their contributions. Now, yes, a company can have in place some rewards and recognition programs that allow others and managers to recognize and reward an employee for their accomplishments. But this goes much deeper. This means that in the day-to-day interactions we have with one another, that we support, feed, and validate the work that each other is doing for the organization. And finally, of course, that brings us to self actualization. The thing about self actualization is it takes very little motivation from management toward the employees to inspire the employee to action when they are self actualizing. In fact, all a manager or an organization needs to do is generally point the employee in the right direction and give them all the leeway, resources, training, and tools they need to do the job to the very best of their ability. Because at this stage, the employee is so engaged and so committed to the vision that they are going to stop at nothing to make sure that they are successful in this sphere. But of course, that means that the company has successfully navigated the other four tiers. And I don't have to tell you, that's a lot easier said than done. And so, yeah, Maslow's pretty simple, but then again, not so much. Sure, understanding the theory is pretty straightforward, but figuring out how to apply it to the workplace, that's something else altogether. But that's what we're going to continue to explore in this series, so I hope you stick around to learn more about motivational theories. And until we talk again, have a fantastic day.